Hi, Tacoma. I'm Mrs. Oslin.
And I'm Mrs. Wally. And welcome to TV Classroom. What are we doing today, Miss Oslin?
We're going on a field trip.
We are. We're going with San Juan Safari Tours on a whale watching trip.
We get to spend time with Laura, who is a senior naturalist, and she's going to talk to us all about the life in the Salish Sea.
So stay tuned, and we'll see you there.
Tacoma Public Schools acknowledges that we are on the traditional, ancestral, and historical lands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Puyallup tribe. This acknowledgement serves as a first step in honoring our tribal neighbors and partners who have inhabited this region since time immemorial and whom we give thanks for allowing us passage to their lands. We shall intentionally create inclusive and respectful partnerships that honor Indigenous cultures, histories, identities, and socio-political realities.
While inside passenger areas on board WSF vessels or at any WSF terminal facility.
Tacoma, I'm Mrs. Oslin.
And I'm Mrs. Wally. Welcome back to TV Classroom. Miss Oslin.
We're not in TV classroom.
We're on a field trip.
We are. This is very exciting.
Before we tell them what we're doing,
yes,
we need to do something very important.
Yes, we're going to do a land and water acknowledgement, which is where we're going to honor that we are on the historical and ancestral land and waters of the Salish Indian Nation.
And it's because of those people that have taken such good care of our land,
yes,
and we are really on borrowed land. So we want to say thank you to that nation for doing such a good job of taking care of our waters and lands.
And we're going to continue to honor the land and the water and the animals.
Wherever we go.
Wherever we go.
So today we are with San Juan Safari Tours. They have gifted us a field trip just for TV Classroom, and we are going on a whale watching tour. Now, the thing that we know about wildlife is we don't get to plan it. So we have no idea if we will see whales today or not, but we will see wildlife of some kind. And as we're watching, we want you to think about what you've been learning in science. Thinking about how do the animals and the land work together to survive? And then for our third grade friends, if we see orcas, thinking about what do you already know and what did you learn today? We will at times have a woman named Laura. She's the head naturalist on board today, so we may get to ask her some questions and we may hear her over the loudspeaker giving some information as we go. So we look forward to seeing you, and we're going to get underway on the boat, and next time you see us, hopefully we have whales.
With other vessels that are out on the water right now. We all like to choose different channels to spread out, check different straits, and communicate on the water what's being sighted.
So teachers,
yes,
what are we looking at over here? Is this Canada?
We're about to head into Canada. There's been a whale sighting, and it's up, what was the island she said? I don't remember the name of the island. We'll ask her and get back to you on that. So as soon as we're going north. The whale, it's a humpback whale, she said, going north, so we're headed there as quickly as we can to see if we can catch up with it. But they said to also really be on the watch out because we could encounter whales at any point. They've had quite a bit of whale sightings the last few days, so fingers crossed.
its mouth. Instead, they have long, flexible plates made up of keratin. And as we drift around, this is going to be a great fluke and a great shot. Hopefully you all got that on video. And just listen to that whale's breath the next time it comes up.
So Ms. Oslin, we're here with Ms. Laura.
We are a senior naturalist with San Juan Safari Tours.
She's the voice you've probably heard during our field trip, giving us great information about the Salish Sea and all of the creatures and animals that live here. So we had a few questions from students, and one of the ones that I thought was really interesting, which you touched on while we were looking at the humpback whale, but I wanted to talk about how they drink the water and how do they get their hydration to live?
That's one of my favorite questions to answer. Humpback whales actually do not swallow much of the salt water that they're taking into their mouths as they're filter feeding. They do have bilobed kidneys, which means that they have 4 kidneys active for the place of 2. So they're double processing all of that salt water that they happen to swallow around the fish. But for the most part, they're just metabolizing all that fish in their digestive tracts and their GI tracts. And that's how they consume all their fresh water.
What about orcas? We haven't seen any yet today, but what about orcas? Do they drink water?
Orcas do, very similar to humpback whales.
Okay.
So they don't filter feed, however. When they're feeding, they take singular prey items one at a time, but that GI tract acts the same way.
Wonderful.
While we're talking about humpback whales and orcas and their body structures, can you tell us about the skeleton of both animals?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions is to talk about anatomy and physiology for all types of whales. So their skeletal structure is very similar to humans. Underneath their flippers, they have 5 fingers, which is very similar to us. And also, they are all born, or before they're born in the fetus, they have little remnants of hind limbs where they used to crawl. And those get absorbed back in, and then that whale is born with a tail. So that's pretty a neat fact. They have a skeleton just like you and I would have.
Amazing. So how do these whales help the ecosystem here in the Salish Sea? What is their role that they play?
Each one plays a different role. So when we're talking about whales, to me that includes all toothed whales and all baleen whales. Our toothed whales that live here are Dall's porpoises, harbor porpoises, killer whales or orcas, and seasonal migrants like our Pacific white-sided dolphins. We also have all of our baleen whales like our gray whales, minke whales, and our humpback whales. So for our top predator of our ocean, our orca or our killer whale, they're acting as that apex predator. So they're keeping everything beneath them in check and capping off all those lower populations. Our humpback whales are very different. They're filter feeding small schooling fish. But one of the best things that a humpback whale can do for this ecosystem is by pooping. All of that scat or poop in the water will increase the nitrogen and all of those low-level compounds on the bottom of our seafloor, and it helps boost all of that kelp forest growth.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So you've said orca killer whale.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit? Tell us about how the orca and killer whale got their name and why do we call it 2 different things?
Yes, so we've been calling killer whales for quite a long time at this point. It translates to demon of the sea when we first named them. They were a large black fish that we now know are mammals, and they had big white teeth. However, their Latin name is Orcinus orca, so to make it seem more friendly, like they're not going to harm a human or another being, we call them orcas for short. But a killer whale is exactly the same as an orca.
And orcas humans are not their prey, correct?
Definitely not. I have never heard of, or nor has anyone heard of, any natural attack of an orca to a human being in the wild. The only attack that has been recorded is in a captive state where that animal is not in its natural environment.
Right.
I heard you mention a lot of different animals that are native to the Salish Sea. Students want to know about sharks.
I love talking about sharks. I hope we see more sharks coming in the next few decades. Historically, during the mid-1900s, we had a lot of basking sharks in the area. They're one of my favorite sharks. They're not harmful to humans either. They are filter-feeding plankton. So they skim the surface and look like they're basking in the sun, and that's how they got their name. But basking sharks were very prevalent. They were heavily over-harvested in this area. So at this point, we don't see too many basking sharks, but their numbers are rebounding very slowly. We have had a few great white shark reports recently. 2 reports in the past 2 years near some of the islands around San Juan Island. And I believe they're getting drawn into this area as they're increasing in their distribution, looking for prey. We have about 50,000 harbor seals in this area, as well as a bunch of stellar sea lions. And they're going to go where their prey is. So they're going to shift and change their distribution just based on where they're finding seals and sea lions.
I heard you say that basking sharks were over-harvested, and I assume by humans?
Yes, by humans.
Can you talk about some of the other human impacts that are happening to the ecosystem here in the Salish Sea?
One of the main things that we have done in the past, I would say, century is just over-harvesting of fish for human consumption. So things that we order at restaurants, going to fish markets, going to grocery stores, we haven't regulated how much we're harvesting. So that is one of the greatest impacts of our Chinook salmon or our king salmon counts. Other than that, a lot of microplastics. We are, the group of plastics. So by putting all of that in our ocean, not only are animals swallowing it, but microplastics are a big problem to the bottom of our seafloor that we're now seeing effects from 50 years prior. Other than microplastics, just general pollution. Especially in these waters, we're very close to major cities. We have Victoria, Vancouver, Sydney, British Columbia, as well as Seattle, even Tacoma. So being so close to rivers as well as offshore, just shipping containers coming through with pollutants, us putting things into our drainage systems, everything gets pushed out into that shoreline. And I would say that's probably one of the greatest long-term effects for our whales.
Last year we were reading some articles about new research around tires on cars and the runoff from the tire, a chemical in the tire, impacting the salmon runs going back up into the streams during the fall because there's so much rain and it's been dry and it washes that all in right as the salmon are coming up, and it's toxic to salmon. So
absolutely. And I believe in some parts of the country they actually have car wash bans depending on fish runs, just based on all the pollutants that go into your drainage systems around rivers. And that definitely affects fish.
So one thing that we can do is educate ourselves about the toxins that are all around us and the timing of the salmon run and making sure we don't do things like wash our cars during that time. What else can we do?
I think restoration projects are great. Every river in our country / in the world will eventually lead to an ocean. So even if you're not on a coastline, if you are near a small stream or river, clean it up. Volunteering on a project for an actual river restoration project will, if everyone does that together, that will end up helping our ocean. And even if you're off, 30 miles from the water, I think you can still do things at home that will help, for sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for teaching us so much about our Salish Sea and all of the animals and the ecosystem.
Yeah, I hope everyone learned something today and had a great tour. So thanks for coming.
Thank you. That was so fun and so much information.
I learned so much. Now, if you were inspired by that field trip, we have a resource for you. You can go to the Junior Sea Doctors Marine Science Club, and that's a place online. It's part of our Salish Sea, and it's all around conserving our Salish Sea and trying to make the environment better so all these species come back to Washington and we have abundant sea life in our ocean.
So
it's amazing.
Check it out and let us know what you learned.
Yep. We hope you had a great day with us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.
Have a whale of a day.